with that, Jesse, I will ask you, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's fire away.
All right. We're going to start with a Riley Leonard or not Riley Leonard, Lincoln Riley. Speaking of
Oh,
stirring the pot, fill in the blank. Pete Nakos of On Three asked USC head coach Lincoln Riley to comment on the future of the USC Notre Dame rivalry. It's blank that Lincoln Riley's response is, quote, "We will at the appropriate time," end quote.
yeah. I mean, it's soft. You have one coach who literally says, "I this rivalry means something to me. It means something to the program, and I'll do anything possible to keep that going." When you think of college football, I think of Notre Dame and USC playing each other, and then you ask Lincoln Riley, and he's well, when the time's right, we can discuss this after. It's very obvious and on the table everything that has been said or kind of led up to this point. So I guess it just further proves USC's lack of urgency on this. And to me, like the part that really pisses me off is it's just disrespectful to Notre Dame. And I'm not saying that this is all about Notre Dame and respecting Notre Dame and all those things, but at the end of the day, like you're a rival for a reason. You've done things for each other. It's a two-way relationship throughout the last 80 to 90 years. And
Right.
so to me it'd just be like grandma and grandpa being together for 80 years, 90 years, and just being like, you know what, we actually want a divorce now.
Yeah.
Like what?
Right.
What do you mean, grandma and grandpa? You've been together your whole life. Like, like this is what it feels like. It feels like grandparents being like, you know what, we actually hate each other. We want a divorce. I can't stand this person anymore. It's so weird to me. It's not like it's just this casual, rivalry relationship that has started over the last 10, 15, 20. Like this, when you think of college football, the Notre Dame and USC rivalry is up there. It might not be the top, but it's definitely at least in the top 10. And so to give it no kind of, to kind of just brush it off the shoulder and just be like, oh, yeah, when the time's right, we'll rediscuss.
It's
I don't know.
one of the most iconic and important rivalries in all of college football. It this isn't what it should be, and it shouldn't be like you shouldn't be giving political answers like
Right.
Lincoln Riley is, because you're right. It's not soft. It's the softest of soft. It's like Charmin soft. The polar opposite, like you said, of what Marcus Freeman was saying. And like to your point about the the rivalry things, like it's one thing to, and I get it. Like there are plenty of rivals that want nothing to do with each other. Texas and Texas A&M come to mind. But like a few years back, this has been several at this point, but Kansas and Kansas State, a rivalry I'm familiar with, there was a time Kansas was being courted by the Big Ten and could have easily gone to the Big Ten if they wanted, like the first round of uncertainty in the Big 12, when there was different stuff going on. Kansas said, we will only go to the Big Ten if Kansas State comes with us. Because and this I think was after Missouri had bolted for the SEC as well, the other major rival of Kansas, what used to be a rival. And that was a great rivalry. And it's, there's a little bit more to it these days. But my point is, like, Kansas understands the importance of the rivalry with Kansas State, and they weren't just going to leave their rival behind and let them, sink into the abyss, which could have happened if the Big 12 had imploded and may have happened back then if Kansas would have gone to the Big 10. They said, we're not going to the Big 10 if our rival's not coming with us, because the rivalry mattered to them. And like, if you apply that to Notre Dame USC, the rivalry should matter to USC as well. When it's, like, if all you're going to do is be myopic and look at this very short window of time and what's going on right now with your football program and who your head coach is and all these different things, and you've got a Johnny come lately athletic director as well. Like both of them combined, the football coach and the AD have barely been there for a combined 5 years, and they're the people, it sure seems like, who are driving this decision. So it just seems very short-sighted on USC's part to be making this decision based on what's going on right now, rather than look at the big picture and 100+ years, going on 100 years of this rivalry, when it's literally, to me, one of the 5 most important rivalries in all of college football.
Yeah, agreed.
So, speaking of rivals, I've got 10 teams that have been rivals to some extent with Notre Dame over the years. Let's put them in a pyramid in terms of how much you would like to see the Irish play them. One team at the top. We're doing a pyramid, so it's one team at the top, 2 at the next level, 3 at the next level, 4 on the base level. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So we're building a pyramid out of these 10 teams. Here are the teams: Stanford, Boston College, Michigan, USC, Miami, Michigan State, Purdue, Navy, Pittsburgh, Penn State. So pyramid, the one team at the top is who?
Oh, top first?
Yes, we're building a pyramid. We're going down.
Yes, but if you built a pyramid, you would start at the base.
But do you want to start at the bottom?
Up.
Do you want to start at the bottom and do it that way?
Yes, I would.
Okay. We'll do it that way then. Who are the 4 teams at the bottom of your pyramid then?
Boston College, Pittsburgh, Stanford, and Purdue.
That's who I've got. That's my base as well. Like, I know a lot of people like the whole, the only 2 Division I Catholic schools and all that stuff with Boston College. I just like, for BC and Purdue, I feel like, and even Pittsburgh, when that was more of a rivalry, that's just always like, those to me, much more of a rivalry to the other side than it is to Notre Dame. And like in Stanford's case, we keep being told it's a rivalry, but I don't see it as a rivalry. So I have to put that at the bottom. So our base level on our pyramid of sometime Notre Dame rivals: Boston College, Purdue, Pittsburgh, Stanford. So that leaves us with Michigan, USC, Miami, Michigan State, Navy. So who are your next 3 teams at the next level?
Navy, Miami, and Michigan State.
I think our pyramids are going to look exactly the same when it's all said and done. That's what I've got as well. I flirted with Miami, Penn State, who I wanted at the second level, but I feel, really, it's been so long since Notre Dame has had any, real connection to either one of them that I went with Miami at this level, because it just doesn't feel like a rivalry now.
Penn State's more relevant and they're more consistent. Miami just can't stay consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. And like Michigan State was one of the more bitter rivals that Notre Dame had. I felt like when they were playing year in and year out, like there was just some nastiness to that rivalry. And that's obviously cooled off quite a bit since they don't play regularly anymore. So that's why I put that in this middle level as well. And I'd rather have Navy than Boston College or Purdue if we're doing it on the regular. So that's why Navy's at this level as well. All right, so we've got 3 teams left: USC, Michigan, Penn State.
The next 2 are Michigan and Penn State, and then USC is at the top.
Yep, that's what I've got as well. Like we've been talking about, USC needs to continue. It's at the top of the pyramid. If you're Notre Dame, you want that to be there. If you're USC, you should want that to be there. It hasn't been that way, but that's how it is. And go ahead.
Those Michigan State games are so fun. I missed those as a child. Like, those were so fun because, like, there was legit bitterness towards each other. And then, like, they were regionally close as well. Like, it doesn't take long to get to East Lansing from South Bend.
Right. Are you excited to see Michigan State come back on the schedule here in a couple years? Are you?
Well, and the other part of it for me, too, is like Michigan State was one of those schools where I was like, hopeful. Obviously the ultimate dream was like play football in Notre Dame, right? And then it was like, okay, what other options are there? Well, Michigan State's a really good engineering school. Texas is a really good engineering school. Maybe both those teams had good baseball programs. And so, like, there's more to Michigan's. Like, there's intrigue for Michigan State. I'm not saying I root for Michigan State, but it's a place that I considered that I was like, man, I would like to go to school here if I could make it work out.
Yep. Toons has said 2006 Michigan State, one of the best games he's been to. I think that was the one in East Lansing, right? The rain and Thom Thibideau ripping the ball away from the Michigan State dude and taking it back for a touchdown and all that stuff. If my memory serves me right,
I believe that is the one.
I'm not loose emoji, so I don't have complete photographic memory. The late great loose emoji, but yeah, a lot of rain that game. Remember that. Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson has aggravated the right shoulder joint that he injured in 2023. He's going to be sidelined for an undetermined length of time. He was in a battle, of course, with Daniel Jones for the starting job in Indy. So, with that in mind, scale of 1 to 10, what chances do you give Riley Leonard to see the field for the Colts this season?
This is a really good question. And this is why I was kind of intrigued with the Colts drafting Riley Leonard, because I didn't think Anthony Richardson would make it, to be honest with you. I thought that the injuries would always kind of be a thing. And so I thought that this would open a maybe a window of opportunity for Riley Leonard. And that might be what we're about to get here. At the end of the day, I'm going to go a 5 out of 10. So I'm going to give this a 50-50 shot. And the thing that has me really hung up on this is Daniel Jones and Riley Leonard are very similar football players. I would say that Riley Leonard is more athletic than Daniel Jones at the end of the day, but they both started at Duke. They both had the same quarterback coach. They both have trouble throwing the football. Like, that's their downfall as a quarterback. And so if I'm the Colts and I'm saying, we have two very similar quarterbacks here, am I going to go with the guy who has 5 years of NFL experience, or am I going to roll the dice with another rookie and see what we got? I don't think Riley Leonard stands a chance at the beginning of the season, but we get midway through the season and Daniel Jones does his usual Daniel Jones activities. I think there's a very solid chance that Riley Leonard can make it in there. So I'm going to go around a 5 or a 6. And if he can really clean up the arm and still have the athleticism, because they clearly value that. They drafted Anthony Richardson, right? And so they want an athletic quarterback. He is far more athletic than Daniel Jones. Just clean up the passes, make the everyday, you don't need to be throwing 40-yard bombs. Just make the completions over the middle, hit your slant routes, be an NFL quarterback, study, work hard. You'll have a chance, because Daniel Jones, if there's one thing we know, is going to implode on himself. He's not a good quarterback, but he's got the experience, and that's who the Colts are going to have to roll with to start.
It's a 5 for me as well. That's why they brought in Daniel Jones, because if he has nothing else, he does have experience. And, just look at any situation. Look at Caleb Williams with the Bears last year. The most experienced guy in the quarterback room was Tyson Bagent, I think. The backup quarterback. He needed some kind of veteran in the room to help show him how to be a quarterback. So I think part of that applies to Daniel Jones. Not that they brought him in to necessarily be a mentor for Richardson and or Lincoln or Riley Leonard, but you brought him in because he's a veteran. And the only downside to that is he's a veteran who's not good. So he's, like you said, if Richardson is unable to go at the start of the season, Daniel Jones is going to get that opportunity. But because Riley Leonard is younger and more athletic and has more upside, and as he gets more comfortable running an NFL offense, and as the Indianapolis Colts find out once again exactly who Daniel Jones is, I think that Riley Leonard is going to have a chance to see the field this season.
It's just going to get to the point with it's kind of that age-old, what is there to lose? We know who Daniel Jones is. Why don't we just see what Riley Leonard's got and maybe give him a game or two? Riley Leonard's going to, and
he's not going to tap out like Anthony Richardson would either. So
That's true. A lot of people still want to hold on to that.
Yes, that's exactly right. And of the 3 guys that the Colts have, Riley Leonard has the best chance to be their quarterback of the future. I think he's got a better chance than Anthony Richardson.
Oh, for sure. The thing is Riley Leonard just needs more time. We're talking about a guy who, in the middle of the transfer portal and COVID era, only played 4 years, like 4 years of college football, no more, no less. And so, I just think he's a prime candidate to like Riley Leonard's best football hasn't been played yet. And he's such a sponge where he wants to absorb everything. He's so eager to absorb and learn everything. Like Riley Leonard will do anything. We saw that, he'll run through a freaking wall if he has to. He'll run over or through or Georgia defenders. Whatever he's got to do, he's willing to do. So I'm really excited. I'm not excited that Anthony Richardson got hurt. I'm excited that Riley
maybe
Leonard
there's an
is gonna get a
opportunity
shot.
for Riley Leonard. Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, if we're being honest here, Riley Leonard's probably going to start every preseason game now.
Good point. He'll have some early opportunities to kind of show what he can do. Appreciate you, Tommy. Might be the nicest thing you've ever said. He says he appreciates my sense of humor, and an old jarhead apparently agrees. See,
some but they're all old like you.
Some people get it. Oh, I don't think Tommy's that much older than you. What, maybe 6-7 years at the most?
Yeah, but he falls in that. Again, I'm right on the threshold, so he's
older than you. He's younger than Vince. So Notre Dame baseball's best player, catcher Carson Tenney, entered the transfer portal earlier this week. What do you think it says about the state of Sean Stifler's Fighting Irish baseball program?
When your best player is leaving and you're underachieving, I don't think it shows any positive signs about your baseball program, unfortunately. And especially at the catcher position, that's, one of the sorry, I got caught up in that comment, but catcher is an important position at all levels of baseball, and to have someone with the hitting mobility that Carson Tenney had, and to not be able to retain who would probably be the leader of your team, the captain of your team, all of the above, it's just more doom and gloom, in my opinion, for the overall state of the program. Because if your best player doesn't want to stay, what does that say to the rest of the team?
Right.
So,
right. And that's, look, I get it. The portal is what it is today, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. Everyone's been hit by it. But if the program was competitive, more competitive, I don't think you would lose a guy like this. He was a semifinalist for the Buster Posey Award and the Dick Hauser Award. Great players on bad teams. This is what they're going to do in the transfer portal and NIL era. They're going to take off. Great players on bad teams, or like great players on at least teams that aren't that good. At least Notre Dame proved itself to be average. Bring itself below the bad line, I guess, this year by the time the end of the season got here. But great players on good teams are more likely to stay and compete and see if they can, get into the get back to the NCAA tournament. Like you do wonder if Notre Dame had made the tournament, would that have been enough for a guy like Tenney to stick around for another year before he probably gets drafted?
But they're just showing no signs of improvement either. And so
that's the problem. That's
why
right.
would he want to stay as a premier college catcher?
Right. Because like you look at what they did this year, they had 7 wins against teams they basically weren't supposed to beat. Teams like, a win against Florida State, a win against Clemson, a series win against Louisville. So that's 4 of their 7 right there. They had 7 bad losses, including teams like Purdue and Western Michigan that were horrible this year. And then they had 25 wins, basically like where it's like you win the games that you were supposed to win. And, that's basically who they were. Like you look at where they are in the ACC from a hitting standpoint, they're 15th out of 16 teams. They're 14th in runs scored. They're like middle of the pack, at least in pitching. They brought it up, but the ERA is still above 5. So that's not good, especially for a head coach whose background is pitching. They should be a better pitching team than what they are. That should be what they have to hang their hat on. But it's not a good sign when you get a player like this who blossoms out of nowhere and who was a part of your resurgence and everything, but now all he's going to go do is be a great catcher for an NCAA tournament team someplace else in either the ACC or the SEC probably next year. By the way, did you see Brian O'Connor took the Mississippi State job this week?
I did not. That's big time.
Yeah. Left Virginia after 20 plus years, a former Notre Dame assistant coach. Big ripples.
I think it's crazy. Sorry, I had a thought and I left, and then it came back when you were talking about the stat stuff. I just think it like Notre Dame last year, their issue was they could score a lot and the pitching was just really bad. I just think it's crazy that they were like, oh, we're changing our philosophy on hitting this year, and they're at the very bottom of the ACC.
I know. It was supposed to, like, their philosophy was supposed to allow them to be more consistent offensively rather than all or nothing with all the home runs.
And that's why I'm just like, do you guys know like anything that you're doing right now? Like, again, I'm not trying to be rude, but like, and I'm not trying to say I have the answers, but I'm not the head baseball coach at Notre Dame.
They're 3 years in. They were in the College World Series 4 years ago, and no one expects them to be in the College World Series every year. But by year 3, this should have been a tournament team. Like
they should be a tournament team every 4 years.
Yeah. Which I guess if they make it next year, you could say, well, but I mean, I still think that more of their success at the end of the season, even though they beat Louisville, give them that. I will completely give them that. And they took a series from Miami. I'll give them that. Louisville was the tournament. Louisville did make the tournament. But most of what they did was the fact that they were playing a bunch of so-so to bad teams at the end of the year.
Oh, for sure.
And it helped them. Like statistically, it made some of that stuff look better. And then you completely blew it
with Bowling Green.
Yeah, completely blew it and lost for the third time
to Boston College
in the last month to Boston College. Yeah. Salty he did. He left UVA. O'Connor left UVA for Mississippi State. Hard times down there in Hooland. Fill in the blank. Another former Notre Dame assistant coach, Cliff Godwin, who's now the head baseball coach at his alma mater, East Carolina, has called out tampering across college baseball. Here's what Godwin tweeted, quote, "Our system is so broken," all caps. "We have coaches at P4 schools texting our players directly who are not in portal, and we have proof," end quote. That, Jesse, is blank.
That is defiant, and it's defiant because you no longer care, and you're willing just to put it out there and put everyone on blast. Like he said, not only is that happening, but I have the receipts to back it up. And so while it's defiant, it's also unfortunate at the end of the day as well, because, especially for baseball, where there's like not as much, NIL, scholarship, all that stuff to go around. Like, how are you supposed to build a program when guys who are wanting to stay are still getting hit up and poached by all these coaches? Like that, there needs, in my opinion, needs to be fines for stuff like that, or suspensions, or, some sort of recruiting suspension. Like there's got to be a repercussion, because it's just not fair, because certain programs are just never going to get out of the mud, essentially, if this keeps happening, right? Like all it is going to be is a revolving door for players. You come in, you play well, and then immediately you're out of the door again and leaving. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, but it's ultimately crappy to hear at the end of the day.
And it's not just baseball, obviously. It's an epidemic across all sports. I mean, this kind of stuff is going on. And if coaches / schools, administrators, players, whoever have the receipts, then something does need to be done. There needs to be, like, what is the NCAA doing in any of this kind of stuff? I realize you tried to resist any of this kind of stuff, portal, NIL, as long as possible until you were forced to deal with it ultimately. But it's your system now. You're supposed to be the governing body. If you're the NCAA, you should be overseeing all this stuff. So yeah, it might take some work, but you need to be doing something about it, whether it's fines to the school, suspensions for coaches, loss of scholarships for teams, whatever. They've got to put their foot down at some point. You can't just let it run rampant like this, but that's what they're doing. Fill in the blank. It's blank that no team has won the NFC East in back-to-back seasons in the last 21 years.
It's pretty crazy if you ask me, because like we were just talking about like the dynasties and all of that stuff, and it just like, and this is why I think the Cowboys are going to be better this year, because all the experts never can get the NFC East right, if we're being honest. Everyone every year, whoever is the betting favorite to win the division every year, never wins. Never wins. And so I have to say that either the Cowboys or the Commanders are going to win the division this year. Ooh. Just if we're doing what? How can you say the Eagles are going to win if there hasn't been back-to-back in 21 years? Like the data is there, the proof is there.
Are the Eagles that good though? That's the question. Like, are they the one to buck the trend finally?
They're losing a lot.
They have, which happens to every good team, and that's why you have to capitalize during your window. And I mean, that's part of why no team has repeated, because of free agency and everything else that comes with it, and because of the fact that even though the Giants have been a doormat here for several years, but and Washington is just starting to emerge. I mean, essentially, you've had one of the more competitive year in and year out divisions in football. I think that's why it's happened. And because it is so hard to repeat as well. You get the first place schedule the next year. I mean, that's
the biggest, and that's the part that I think is, and when you talk about like the dynasties like we were earlier, like that's where you have to respect it, because it's not like they're playing easy like schedules year in and year out. If you're winning Super Bowls in your division, you're playing that first place schedule every single time, right? And so that's what makes that stuff even more important. But this is why no one ever gets the NFC East right, and they never get the Cowboys right. And so when I saw 7.5, I am chomping at the bit. I might even put the Cowboys to win the division now. I'm talking myself into it a little bit.
Well, look, the Eagles are going to have, or the Cowboys are going to have a schedule comparable to this, but here's who the Eagles have. They open against the Cowboys. Week 2, they go to Kansas City. Then they've got the Rams, Tampa Bay, Denver. Those are all playoff teams. Their first 5 games are playoff teams to open the season. Then they get the Giants. Then another playoff team. They go to Minnesota. They get the Giants again. That's interesting that they get them in the middle of the season. Then they go to Green Bay. Then they have Detroit. Cowboys again. Chicago Bears. What are they going to be? They go to the Chargers. They play the Raiders, the Commanders, the Bills, and then the Commanders. Commanders 2 of the last 3 weeks to close out the regular season. And then the Bills there at the end. So that is a tough beginning to the season for Philadelphia. That is a tough ending potentially to the season for Philadelphia.
Very tough.
Yeah. Joe, if the Eagles go back to sucking again, I would like that as well. I would agree with you. Fill in the blank. It's blank that after New York Knicks fired Thom Thibideau this week, every NBA coach of the year from 2017 through 2023 has been fired within 4 years of winning that award.
Yeah, it's insanity. And I would hate to be an NBA coach, because even when you win coach of the year, even when you win championships, you still get fired. Like, I don't understand what the expectation is. Is the game evolving and changing so much that you have to cycle through coaches? Like, I'm so confused about what it takes to have job security at the NBA level. And, I did a lot of reading into, the whole Thibodeau thing. And basically the way I kind of boiled it down was beating Boston ultimately set them up for failure, is kind of how I was reading it. It's like they weren't expected to beat Boston, and then you beat Boston, and then you fall at the feet of the Pacers.
Expectations change. Right.
And so, but then the other part of this that I read is that basically, the way that the Pacers have assembled their team, it sounds like Knicks front office don't believe that the Knicks are equipped to beat that Pacers team. Like, if Thom Thibideau runs his same method and same kind of style year in and year out,
they would lose to him again.
They would lose to him again, because the Pacers have exploited a weakness of the Knicks. And so while they were able to beat Boston, simultaneously they exploited their weakness that the Pacers took advantage of. And it sounds like it's Thom Thibideau would not be able to fix that just based off of his coaching style and philosophy, it's just crazy because coach of the year, the Knicks' best finish since I think like 1990 or something, or maybe 2000. I can't remember the exact year, but I mean, we're
I think
talking
it's
at
the
least
first
20 years.
First 50-win season in 30 years that they had. First conference finals appearance in 25 years. And like you look at 4 of the last 6 NBA championship winning head coaches have been fired. It is just crazy how quick the churn is among coaches in that league. I mean, like none of them last. And like Denver just won a championship 2 years ago. They fired their head coach, Michael Malone, before this season was ever over. So they had an interim during the playoffs. And now, like, there's a good chance Malone ends up being the head coach of the Knicks when it's all said and done. Like, look at Budenholzer. He's been fired twice. He wins a championship with Milwaukee against Phoenix, gets fired by Milwaukee a couple years later, gets hired by Phoenix, and he's already out there after 1 year. Nothing lasts.
What was I going to say? Oh, I mean, to add on to all of that, I mean, the Grizzlies coach made the playoffs and got fired a week before the playoffs started.
Right.
Like, what?
Right.
I didn't even get to, at least duke it out in the playoffs. Like everything, all these wins I accumulated, I don't even get the chance to do anything with it. I don't know. I would be paranoid 24/7 as an NBA coach. Anytime that phone rings, I'd be like, oh, well, today is my day.
Zero stability. That's right. All right, we're going to wrap it up with that tonight. Appreciate the we in, we out questions earlier tonight. Appreciate all the interaction in the chat as well. We will be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. It'll be a 3-man show. Me, Jesse, Vince, we will all be here tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Hit that like button before you leave, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.